Salutations, everyone, and thank you for watching another episode of DiabeticRadio.com. This is episode 72. What does it all mean when a diabetic discovers that he or she has to take insulin? You know, when I look back, since I've created Diabetic Radio, I realize that there are still many aspects of diabetes that are just too difficult to explain to people who are not diabetic. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just, you know how when you experience something and someone occasionally asks you, what was it like? There are some experiences in life where it's hard to find a single word to describe something, or even find the right emotion can be difficult in order to describe a feeling as it relates to your experience. This is what many diabetics go through, especially since diabetic education is a never-ending task. However, on the other hand, diabetics are not usually asked what diabetes is really like for us. We are usually told by other people who don't know us or don't have diabetes what our experiences should be. This is where the DOC, or the Diabetic Online Community, comes in. We are not just people who just want to spill our guts and tell all our business out on the internet, just to be doing it. We are sharing our real life stories about diabetes, in addition to also being diabetic advocates. We try our best, I try my best to encourage as well as to inform those who are willing to listen. Like I've said before over the years, it is very important to seek support from other diabetics. That is, those diabetics that are actively working towards the goal of good blood sugars. Diabetes can be so overwhelming, especially when you've been first diagnosed. But in a nutshell, what's the bottom line? What is the one or two words of wisdom that we as diabetics can all live by? Well, there is none, in my opinion. Well, actually, there's just one. And that is, diabetes is so very individual. And that means one way will not fit all of us. I think this is the one major thing that I think should be drilled into a non-diabetic's brain. Sometimes people think they understand what they see, but in actuality, they make uninformed assumptions about what they see. And and I don't mean that in a bad way. Let me give you an example. For instance, someone may say, quote, I told my grandmother never to take that insulin. Now her doctor has to amputate her leg, and I just know it. I know it was that insulin because I seen it with my own eyes. She wasn't that bad before she took that insulin. However, in all actuality, in all likelihood, it wasn't the insulin that got her leg amputated, rather than the fact that the grandmother still wasn't able to control her blood sugars. That's why she's diabetic. Either it was because she wasn't trained properly on how to use insulin, or she couldn't mentally, psychologically, or emotionally deal with the burden of having to inject 4 to 6 times every day and testing her blood sugar 10 times every day. And unfortunately for the grandchild, there is nothing that you or I can say or do to make them change their attitudes concerning insulin. This, my friends, is the power of belief. This is why it's so important to read and be informed. The bottom line is that there are no shortcuts when it comes to diabetes. You must get over your hang-ups about medication and insulin. It doesn't matter whether you're healthy or not. You could be the best vegan in the world. Sometimes you just have to take medication. Look, on a real, if we can take insulin in a pill, it would be entirely different. The world would see insulin very different. The attitudes would be different. The fact of the matter is, if it were not for the fact that people, in my opinion, most people are ecmophobic, we would not have the kind of resistance in terms of insulin the way we have now. I really think that at least that would be partially true. But unfortunately, injection still remains to be the best way to get insulin into our body. If we were to drink insulin, let's say in a gel cap, the acid in our stomach would immediately destroy the insulin. I remember a company called Pfizer tried to make an insulin product that supposedly allowed you to inhale insulin. It was in powdered form. It came by way of tablets. The product was called Exubria. It looked like, in my opinion, this giant crack pipe. It was huge. Unfortunately, this product did not last long on the market. Patients were complaining about major lung problems shortly after using this product. So about 2 or 3 years after the product was launched, it quickly was pulled from the shelves, if I remember correctly. So diabetes is not a disease caused by the absence of vitamins. Okay, although vitamins can definitely assist with better assimilation of glucose, but diabetes is the inability to properly process sugar. This is regardless of whether you're type 1, type 2, Lada-Modi syndrome X, whatever category doctors will have in the future. Although I must say the mechanics of each type of diabetes is very different and distinct. I'm not, arguing with anyone on that. But the bottom line is there's one common thing they all have, and that's glucose. And we need to get that glucose under control by any means necessary. If you can't do it by herbs, you may have to do it by medication. That's life. So, my health nut friends, I know that a lot of you know a lot about health, and you should be commended for that. However, in the real world, much of the knowledge that many health gurus have are not diabetes specific. And much of the information you have can benefit everyone, including diabetics. However, diabetes is a whole different animal. I want my health nut friends to know that regardless of the vegetable, fruit, protein, or mineral you recommend a diabetic to consume, if the individual does not make insulin in his or her body, guess what? They will die. If an individual does not make enough insulin, they will eventually die a slow death with lots of complications to look forward to. So in other words, the value of vitamins so far, as far as I'm concerned at this point, it's a moot point. Don't get me wrong, vitamins are extremely important to our survival. Vitamins are extremely important. I'll say it again, vitamins are very important. However, so is insulin. And some of us need it, some of us don't, and some of us will need it. Sometimes I find it funny. People would so often, who don't know about diabetes or who are not diabetics but feel that they can help you cure you with your diabetes, they always talk down on people who have to take insulin, and yet these same people are taking all kinds of vitamins and never question the source of these vitamins. My body instantly recognizes the insulin that I inject into my body, and it immediately uses it. However, a lot of you taking man-made lab vitamins and not even aware of it, and your body has to take a long time to process them, but no one bats an eye because you're too busy worrying about me. I got a great idea. How about you being mindful about what you ingest, what you take into your body, and let me worry about me? Thanks very much. I used to go bananas when I hear long, dragged out discussions in the diabetic community about which diabetes is worse. Guess what? They are all horrible. If you ask me, I think type 2 is the worst diabetes. What? What are you saying, Yogi? Are you nuts? Type 2 is the best because you don't have to take, insulin, which is not true. Not every, not all type 2s are the same. Some type 2s have to take insulin. It's very important for you guys to know. But anyway, think about it. Think about it for a minute. This is why I feel type 2 is theoretically the worst disease. My diabetic communities, please forgive me. I'm just going to have to be raw here for a second. I don't mean to ruffle any feathers. I don't mean to stir things up. But look, real world. If someone who has full-blown type 1 literally cannot live a day without insulin, right? However, for people with LADA, MODY, or type 2, there is a slow onset, right? So what does that really mean? Have you guys thought about that? It's not just about how long it takes for the disease to present itself to you. It's more about how long your blood sugars stay high Because remember, a lot of people may not recognize the symptoms. They may not know that most people, especially type 2, don't know that they're diabetic until long after. Before the next thing you know, one of your major organs decide to stop working. Metaphorically, as far as I'm concerned, it's like being a functional walking dead. So an individual lives a significant portion of their lives either not knowing they have diabetes or refuse to deal with their diabetes. In either case, they are living their lives as normal as they possibly can, while internally their bodies are literally falling apart, literally running away, and don't even know it. Next thing you know, you wake up in the ER and the head doctor says, sorry sir, sorry ma'am, we're going to have to take your right leg because you've had diabetes, and unfortunately, years and years of unmanaged blood sugars, we have to take your leg. You got gangrene or whatever. I'm just saying, I don't mean to upset the type 1 community in any way. My point is that, in my opinion, all diabetes can be potentially bad diabetes, and there's too much focus on this subject, and it leads me to believe that both the medical community and the DLC is not doing enough to truly educate people. I'm really sorry for this long video, but my heart felt that I need to talk about this subject, and so I did. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time. Bye.